Okay.
We are live.
Okay. Is the best. There you go.
My mic. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Creative to Share Conversation yet again.
The clock in the other way.
Hello.
There you go. Hello.
Go on.
Hello. Welcome everybody to the show. This is Candid Conversation, and I am Moshira Kashengi. I'll be your host in the next 1 hour or so. And we have a great guest today, one of the favorite people you'd wish, or rather you'd have wished you met a bit earlier, but it's never too late. So we have a gentleman here. He wears many hats, and trust me, every hat has countless feathers. He's gonna talk to us about influencership, rather as a career. He wanna tell us what it means to live a paycheck every other month and thrust himself into the uncertain times of freelancing. You know, especially now when there is corona, pandemic, and everything, you know, it must be a very daring thing for him to just leave his job, which is assured of, and go out there and seek his own thing, you know, in his own words, something that he loves. So our guest today is none other than Rama Oluoch, aka Ramzzy. He's known as Ramzzy to most people. He has a titan following on Twitter and all social media platforms. Yeah, Ramzzy. And Ramzzy is a former business head at Scanat. Actually, he spent a stint of 2 years there. And he's a painter. He paints on canvas. I think that's what he enjoys doing most. He's also a creative digital strategist. So he has so many other titles to his name. And one of something I found out to be very interesting is that he's a vlogger and a parenting vlogger. So looking at him, you must be really excited to meet somebody who can share tips. So welcome, Ramzzy, on board.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I think it's my first interview this whole year. So yeah,
wonderful.
Pleasure, honor to be here.
That's great. It must be rare for you. So Ramzzy, let's start from the top, perhaps, and tell us now how it feels to be a freelancer, because that's who you are, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in the case
Freelancing
of
is like bungee
the
jumping.
things that comes with freelancing, how is the experience?
I think my experience freelancing is it's like bungee jumping. On some days it's very exciting, on other days it's terrifying, but you always have to remember that you're attached to the cord, and doesn't matter how low you go, you're always going to come up. So that's how I can describe what freelancing is. It's a risk every time. Every day is a risk. Every day, oh, you're going to get low. The next day, you're going to get up. But it's a lot of ups and downs. But it's totally worth it. The adrenaline rush is worth everything. Yeah.
Before you get there to a position where you are comfortable and confident enough that you can be swimming in the times of the highs and the lows that comes with freelancing and consulting tasks, it means that you are very confident about yourself and your skills. Maybe you tell us how it has been a journey of building your skills as a creative digital strategist, as a painter, as a a vlogger, as an influencer. Those are so many skills packed into one. How are you able to do that from the word go?
I think for me, it's been something that I've been doing over long periods of time. I started drawing before I started painting. I was drawing, and drawing was a form of expression for me. So I used to do it to express myself. I was not doing it professionally. And just the whole influencing thing has been something that you've always used my platforms to express myself. I started doing it on Facebook, and on Facebook I was talking and saying a lot of things that generated a lot of discussion. And I think at some point my friends dared and challenged me to join Twitter, where the sort of conversations I was sparking were more, you know, engaging and more inclined towards people who have common ideas. And so I think
Uh-huh.
over long periods of years, just based on where I'm from, because I grew up in Eastlands, I've spent like half my life in Eastlands. I
Yeah.
had to be good or at least decent at most of the things I was trying my
Mm.
hand at, whether it was painting, whether it was football. I played Maisa. A lot of people don't know about that. I played Maisa up to under 12,
Mhm.
under 14, I think. I was in the Beast team of the school. So I'm one of those multifaceted guys. I like to think of myself as one of those Nairobi kids who would have made it at
Mhm.
something. I was trying my hand in
Yeah.
very many different things, but then it just so happens that the place where just timing and
Uh-huh.
practice, I landed on advertising, and that's how I got into the whole advertising industry. But I would
Yeah.
have made, if I didn't made it as an admin, I think I would have made it um, as an artist, because that was one of the things I was doing. If I didn't make it as an artist, maybe I would have made it as a footballer, because I also used to play a lot of football. So yeah.
Do you mean that you translated your passions into your career or what you used to, what you
I
loved
think
at
for me
first?
it was more about passions, translating
Uh-huh.
passions and into things that I lean towards, and I tend to do things that I enjoy. I don't
Yeah.
force myself to do anything that I don't enjoy. But then I always look for ways to monetize, because I have that Nairobi brain. I always look for ways to monetize the things that I find fun in. And this goes
Uh-huh.
back to as far back as primary schools. I used to sell stickers to my classmates, and I'd make stickers for sets, for those mathematical sets. I used to sell them to my classmates when I finished primary school, waiting
Yeah.
for that period. I think those few months before you go to high school, I used to make stickers and make my sister sell them to her classmates. So I've been a hustler since I was in primary school. And I mean that in a hustler in a
So,
positive way, not political or
uh-huh.
anything. Yeah.
That's a great thing to tell me that you were born and bred in Nairobi and you decided to look for bread or put the bread on the table still from Nairobi by being
Yeah.
creative in your ways to
Yeah.
translate your passions into your career. Where did your motivation originate or emanate from? Because perhaps when you were growing up and others were hoping to be doctors or hoping to be, I don't know, I should ask what you hope to be. And now that we know who you turned out to be, where your motivation came from.
Okay, so when I was growing up, I wanted to be a pilot, just because everyone around kindergarten, that age, everyone wanted to be a pilot because no one had ever been on a plane. So that's the only reason I
Uh-huh.
wanted to be a pilot. Later on, because I was really good at drawing, and I discovered that very early on um, in my life. I think
Yeah.
my teachers tried to push me more towards architecture, so I wanted to be an architect at some point.
Uh-huh.
Then I fell in love with football. I wanted to be a footballer. So it's like I tried a lot of things before I landed on what I'm doing right now.
And
That's I
that
would say.
tells
So it's been a question of timing and opportunity. Sometimes people say it's about effort, it's about
uh-huh.
opportunities, about what opens the doors first. And for me, that's where I landed in advertising, because that's where doors opened first.
I'm putting your hands in almost everything. Would you please share with us what it is in terms of experience to be a creative digital strategist? What do you stand for when you're a creative digital strategist? And perhaps what specific skills does one require to have such a title? I know there is more to the title, and that's what I would like to hear about.
Okay, so digital strategy, I would say in a nutshell, is how we place brands online. So when your brand comes online, what does your brand talk about? How does it show up on digital platforms, and how does it make use of the strengths of each platform? Then there's platforms on digital that you don't really need to be on, and there's others that you cannot do without. So that's a job of a digital strategist, to find out um, this brand, who it appeals to, and who it's willing to recruit. How
Yeah.
does it show up to those guys? Then a digital
Yeah.
strategy, in as much as they're digital minded, they're also very creative in terms of what they do. So I think to me, in my past, how I landed up in that role, I've written radio scripts, I've done ads
Yeah.
before. So I like to think of myself as a full 360 creator. I interviewed my job my first job in advertising. I think I interviewed as a designer because that's what I studied in college. It just so
Yeah.
happens that during the time I was interviewing for a designer job, they needed a
Uh-huh.
content writer more than designers. So I started content, and that's how I stayed in content. But I've always been doing design, doing artistic stuff and art stuff on the side. Yeah.
Perhaps before I go to the next question to ask how you balance your personal image as Rama online and Rama the influence of a specific brand, I would like to know in your journey and in your experience, what has been easy? Is it following the path towards your skill or following the path towards your passion? I know both are complementary, yeah, but which has been easier?
Hello.
Yeah, hello, you can hear me?
Hello.
Sorry, let me
Can you
rephrase,
repeat
yeah?
that? This,
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Asking now
just
that you
repeat
have
the
had
question.
the
Yeah, sorry.
sure. So you've had the experience of and the fortune, where opportunity meets preparedness. But now following in your steps and in your former experience, which has been easier, where you went towards a job that required your particular skills, or where you went towards your passion? Which route was easier for you from your own experience?
I don't think there was any easier road, if that's the question. I think if I get your question right, there was no easy road to it. For me, I think the fact that I grew up, where I grew up in Eastlands, and just how I was raised.
Uh-huh.
Anything I put myself and my head into had to be like, I had to succeed. There was no two ways about it. I had to succeed. So I was good at anything I tried my hand in, and that is from drawing. I'm a self-taught artist. I never went to art school, so I was good
Uh-huh.
at everything up to that point. I tried football. I knew I could have been a better footballer if I put in more effort, but because of my own reasons and other reasons that were beyond me, I couldn't go pro or do better than I was doing. But in terms of just me applying myself, the motivation to succeed usually came from the fact that my mom usually sacrificed a lot to make sure that we have everything we have. So just to repay her back and tell her, thanks for everything, and just to make her proud. Anything I did, I put 100% passion in it, and
Uh-huh.
what I decide to do, I put 100% effort.
So it's a
I don't
question
know
of
if I
being aggressive.
answered your question. I didn't get that right because the stream is a bit shaky.
So it's a question of being aggressive at what you're doing. Hello.
Yes. So the aggressiveness comes from the fact that if I say I want to be a 360, for me, like being as a creative digital creative strategist, if I said to myself that I want to be the best digital creative strategist, then I would ask myself in Kenya, the guys who are doing it right now, who can do it better than me. That's how I used to gauge myself. From the time I was doing
Yeah.
content, and I used to be very proud. I take a lot of pride in seeing my brand and my content doing very well organically without even ads. I just say, you know what, let's do this. If we're going in, let's go in 2 foot. There's no space for failure as long as I have a support system and I have guys who are on the
Yeah.
same wavelength as me, because you can't do everything by yourself. Obviously, in advertising, you need a
Sure.
team that is just as dedicated and as passionate as you are. So as
Yeah.
long as I had that, I think I never had any reasons to feel sorry for myself or any reason to believe that I couldn't achieve anything I put my head into.
That's wonderful, and it's equally challenging. So I have a question close to that, since you've said your passion, your skills, your abilities, and the aggressiveness to go for what you put your mind into has gotten you that far. You've also mentioned support system, yeah, because you cannot be an
Yeah,
island. So I have a tweet here from you, and I think I should ask something. Yeah, I should ask something. You
yeah,
said there are people I worked with in the past that were told I'm a living devil just because I wanted more and better. And then you go
yeah,
ahead and say qualified. You give analogy. If you are really qualified, but then people do not want to fix a challenge in the ship in which you are sailing, then you'll be blamed for everything. What are some of the challenges you've experienced, having given yourself everything, having given everything that you have to ensure that a certain task succeeds? What failures, what greatest challenges have you met, and have
yeah.
you come across? Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so one of the biggest challenge I've had, the biggest challenges I've had is I left employment once. I think around 2016. I remember around October. I left employment and I went to start my own company because I had told myself by the time I'm 30, I want to have a family. I had told myself by the time I'm 30, I want to have a business of my own. So I
Yeah.
left employment and I jumped 2 foot into, the advertising world as myself in my own capacity with my own outfit company.
Uh-huh.
And my first and second clients were big clients. But at the time, I just had a newborn son. I had just moved places, so that whole confusion between trying to run a business, having a newborn son, and everything is just a new experience to me. Kind of
Uh-huh.
left me a bit dazed. Felt like a deer in front of headlights. So it was a big. I think that's one of my biggest moments in I would say in my life, because that's when I really
Yeah.
really had to define who I am. And I would
Uh-huh.
say I tried my best. I gave it everything for 6 months. I did
Uh-huh.
everything I could to make sure that everyone in my life is happy. But then I just at some point I think caved in because I was juggling too many balls and I was trying to do
Uh-huh.
everything by myself. And that's one of my biggest lessons that I came out of that whole experience with, is you cannot do everything by yourself. You need a whole team around you. You need a support
Yeah.
system around you. And a support system can be emotional, it can be a support system for skills where you're not good at something, get someone else who is there who can do it for you. And that has to be someone who's always around you. Um, and that was my biggest lesson so far. Also, one of my biggest challenges. Just trying to get into advertising by myself. It caught me off guard, and yeah,
Yeah.
I learned a lot through that experience. Yeah.
So I think there is something that we share when you attempt to do everything by yourself. It's a level of trust that you have in you, and which you cast some doubt that perhaps if you delegate the roles, then it means it might fail. I think it's a question of trusting other people. Could you
Yes.
tell us how you manage that? It will help me, if not
So
everybody.
yes, I agree. It's a question of trust and you having a vision. Sometimes you have a vision in your head, and not everyone will be on the same wavelength as you. So sometimes you see something in your head in a certain light, and then when it's executed in a different light. Same vision though, but I think I was too stuck on being perfect. And that's when I realized that perfectionism sometimes doesn't really, it's counteractive. I was
Yeah.
trying to execute everything perfectly. I had the perfect ideas, I had the
Uh-huh.
perfect plan,
Right.
and I was trying to cost cut also on a lot of things. So whereas um, I could have maybe saved a lot of the business by
Yeah.
maybe sacrificing, say, maybe 30% of my revenue to work with other guys who could execute what I wanted. I went for the cheap guys, and when the
Yeah.
cheap guys couldn't do it, I tried to do it myself, and that's how everything crumbled. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's a mixture of
So
both. Yeah,
I
it's a
think
mixture of
there lies a
perfectionism.
major lesson.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
You struggle
You're
with
being,
perfectionism, and at the end of the day, you realize that you might not achieve that.
yeah, you can you if you're a perfectionist, you have to pay top notch for people who can deliver top notch work. I think for me, I had the good ideas, I had the
Uh-huh.
good everything, I could do good presentations, but then, you know, I was trying to cost cut on a lot of
Yeah.
things, and I realized, if you pay less for something,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna get less quality. I try to do everything by
Yeah.
myself. That's where everything crumbled. Doesn't matter how good I am, because I can design, I can write, I can script. I could not
Uh-huh.
simply do everything by myself. Yeah.
Great. Before we talk about the Green Calabash and where the idea of the name came from, I would love to know how you distinguish between Rama the individual, the gentleman, at home, and Rama the influencer when you are online. How are you able to stay creative, maintain your individual identity, while at the same time working for different brands online? I think there is a thin line in there. So how do you maintain your creativity and feel that you are not swaying or leaning too much towards the culture of a specific brand?
I think for me, um, I really do not in any way have like a line that I draw between Rama and Ramsey, because Rama is the guy who will be in the boardroom. Ramsey is more of a character, that's my alter ego. So if they're
Mhm.
all me, I would love to sit here and say that Rama and Ramsey are different people, but Ramsey is a small fraction of who Rama is. And I'm very playful. If anybody who follows me, anybody who knows me online and knows me offline, will attest to the fact that I'm very playful, and that playfulness to me is what um, motivates and catalyzes my creativity.
Yeah.
So if you take yourself too serious, so you take yourself more serious than people take you, I think that's when the creativity starts to die out, because i I really like to think of
Uh-huh.
myself as a person who can be a 10-year-old when he wants and a 90-year-old when he wants. So I have my moments where I'm very serious and have moments where
Uh-huh.
I'm very playful, and I really am comfortable in either or. I don't really think I have like a distinction between, oh, now you're an influencer, now you're not, because I don't even think of myself as an influencer. What I
Yeah.
believe I am is a person who creates content that moves
Uh-huh.
people in certain ways. So I know everybody's an influencer. The biggest influencers to me are my family and my friends. But I
Mhm.
know that if someone says something that I agree with, and someone says something that I can relate to, then that's where the influence comes in. But I don't think of myself as someone who sells influence. I don't sell influence.
Uh,
All I do is sell ideas and content.
I think that's a bit of yourself.
Yeah.
So great. Maybe I also ask when you are consulting or when you are working as a freelance, I
Yeah.
understand that you must be really interested in carving your particular niche, or rather having a certain identity. Do you have a particular yardstick which you use to determine which brands you can work for the sake of your own brand, and which ones you may opt not to?
I used to. I used to have no reservation in terms of who I would work with. I think at the beginning, because I come from a very humble background, where like I'm from East Lands, guy. Like, if you have an
Yeah.
opportunity to make money, you grab it with two hands. But then I think the more I've grown into what I am and what I do for a living, the more I've realized that there's certain areas and certain things that I'm not really comfortable doing. So when I work with brands, I look at brands that I would in a normally I would in a normal day
Yeah.
use, consume in terms of product of or service, and those are the brands that I'm
Uh-huh.
more comfortable working with. I also look at brands that share the same ideals as me. So if I feel like a brand doesn't really or there's elements of a brand that I don't really agree with, then I'm very reluctant to work with such brands. So yeah, I've learned a lot in terms of how to say no and then also when to say yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you can actually say no to money.
I can say no to not to money. Saying I don't say no to money, but then I can say no to opportunities that
Hello,
don't
Ram.
that that to opportunities that
You
are
can
not.
hear me. There is
Yes, there's noise in the background.
to,
Yeah, let me move a bit because my kids are out basking. I'm saying I've said no before to
uh-huh.
opportunities that were not mutually beneficial. You know, sometimes you'll work with brands and have things that you're doing together that benefit them more than they benefit you. Other times you'll work with brands that, you know, don't see the value of you as a partner. I like brands that respect me as a brand as well as a partner, as
Yeah.
well as a partner.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your background is a bit amazing, and there is someone, Johnny Dark, asks a question. Do you really
Yeah.
regret leaving employment and moving your family to coast?
I've left employment before, so I don't really regret anything. I think for me, I I failed, and I'm not really ashamed of saying it. The first time I failed because I tried to do everything by myself. Um,
Uh-huh.
and it's not the first time I've left employment. I spent my
Yeah.
whole life. I think I got my first job when I was 25. I spent my whole
Mm,
life, my
yeah.
whole young adult life, wishing for a good job. And then when I finally got a job, I worked for like 5 years, and I quit to
Uh-huh.
try my hand at self-employment. I did
Mhm.
well. I think I would say I did decent for myself, but then
Yeah.
the timing was wrong, so the failure was inevitable. And eventually, I went back to
Uh-huh.
employment, and this time around, I'm coming in for a second round,
Yeah.
but I'm not my approach is totally different this time around, so I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
It's more about me and how, excuse me, and how I'm building myself and how I'm building my own brand as opposed to building other people's brands.
I think tied to John's question is many people regret leaving their employment due to the
Yeah.
uncertainty that lays ahead and the challenges that comes with that. So I think he could be looking to find out the challenges that you find instantly, and the lessons that you learn because you said at first you failed because you did everything by yourself, and you also failed in terms of timing. Maybe two also lessons that you learned about leaving employment and being propelled by your dreams to go and be independent. So, are there lessons
I,
that you
I,
would wish to share with us?
I think the first lesson I learned the first time I left employment are the lessons that have brought with me to this point where I say I have left employment for the second time around, and I'm trying to do, and this is doesn't mean that I don't do jobs. Of course, I still work for people just under my own terms, and we have sort of partnerships. It's not more so like this is my boss and I'm the employee. It's more like we are partners in terms of what we do. One of the biggest lessons for me, and I'm saying this with no regrets of all, like because I've understood the question is asking if I have regrets. I have no regrets at all. I think one of my biggest lessons, and one of the biggest lessons for
Yeah,
me, is the fact that um, you can invest a lot everywhere, but then if you don't invest in yourself, it's still very uncertain. So I left employment to invest more in myself. I've learned how to illustrate better since I left employment, and I've learned how to
Uh-huh.
monetize more of these illustrations that I'm working on. So I'm learning a lot of new things. I'm trying to do a lot of just, expand my digital knowledge base and just make sure that I'm very competitive even when I'm outside of employment. Of course, I
Yeah.
still take on clients. It's just that things are slow. Things are slow during COVID-19, but it's
Uh-huh.
that slow movement of business is an opportunity for everyone to sit back and look at how they can improve themselves, make sure that they're ready for when everything gets back on track and
Yeah.
become more competitive. Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's also great to hear that you have a wonderful family that you are raising. And now coming to the Green Calabash, the idea of look, you
Yeah.
share tips on parenting and you do some wonderful thing. Where is the idea? I know you are creative, so you are fluid, but please, where did the idea of the Green Calabash come from?
The green calabash actually wasn't my idea. That was Shiko's idea. If you don't know who Shiko is, she's my partner. She started the Green Calabash as a blog, just to talk about her experience as a mother, as a first time mom, and especially just talking abroad. I only came into the picture after we got together. I never even knew she had a blog. So until later on, when I discovered, oh, she used to blog and stuff, like it's things I found out later on. And so I got into the picture later, much later in the story. So it's not my. I
Uh-huh.
can't really explain where it came from. It was her idea. I'd love to tell you guys where it came from and the name and everything, but then she would probably explain it better than I can. I have an idea of
So
what it
Rama is
means,
a
but
supportive partner, a
yeah,
supportive
yeah,
spouse.
yeah. I have an
Please
idea. I can
pass
try and
greetings
explain what
regards
it
to
means.
Shiko.
Yeah.
Uh, that's great. Delphine Zia asks, Delphine, yeah, India asks, as a freelancer, do you really need to work harder than you hand to while employed? Um, as far as work ethics are concerned, work ethics in terms of time, how you handle your clients and everything. Do you have to
Yes.
put an
Yes.
extra effort? Uh-huh.
Yes. You have to work extra hard, but then the type of work is different because when you're employed, your
Uh-huh.
your work is based on hours. So you only get paid if you work 8 hours a week. When you're freelancing, you work just as hard, but then the work is task based. For example, if I have someone who
Uh-huh.
wants maybe 4 illustrations in a week, once I'm done with the 4 illustrations in a week and I'm done doing maybe my 16 illustrations in a month, then I know I'm going to get my paycheck. When you're employed, it's a bit different because when you're employed, someone can tell you move this from point A to B. If you move it from point A to B and you have time on your hands, you'll be told, okay, now move point B to C. As long as you have time, it's going to be consumed. So when you're freelancing, you have to work just as hard, but then it's work that you can finish. I know I'm more in control of my time. I can say I've done one, two, three, four things, and then I have time to now do my own things on the side. Yeah, and learn a bit more stuff because yeah.
So that's great. So you have to work as hard and more, be a bit more disciplined at it.
Yes, yes. Because when you're freelancing,
What's your
there's no one
experience?
there's
Okay,
no one to look
what's your
over your shoulder.
experience? Uh-huh.
Yeah, come again.
And, and I want to ask you your a question on how you deal with clients because most of us have been freelancers in different sectors and clients are almost the same people. How are you able to put them? Don't lose your clients, keep your clients, but at the same time you make them to respect the terms and conditions because I think they are just on paper. You agree you're going to pay a certain amount of money, and then after the work is done, you're going to complete the remainder. And you find clients are moving you round and round, like you don't want to do this dancing thing again, or you don't want this client. How are you able to deal with that?
I think for me, as a freelancer, and from just my own experience, I am more interested nowadays in working with clients who view me as a partner to their business. It's not about you're the client or I'm the boss and that type of engagement. It's more about if I'm your partner, then I'm working in your best interest. And if you're my partner, you're working towards mutual interest. So, like, for example, um, I don't really, anytime I sense, for me, I have red flags. Anytime I sense that someone thinks they are my boss, or the way, if I feel any amount of disrespect, I either call it out
Uh-huh.
or I just walk away from the situation. So for me, it's more about how we working together to ensure we have the same objectives. Of course, sometimes you'll have clients who are very stubborn. They'll engage you as an expert in what you do, but then they will always push back your
Uh-huh.
expertise. So we do have those problematic types of engagements where someone will respect your work, but then at the same time try to impose or try to change your work into something that isn't feasible. So I make it an effort for me to explain what I do, explain how I do it, and ensure that if we're working as partners in any form of agreement, if I tell you it's going to happen in this manner,
Uh-huh.
and you push me back, and I'll also make sure that I call out the consequences of certain things, because I know, understand, clients are also humans, and sometimes they fall under pressure themselves, but then pressure is not to be distributed. We have to deal with pressure the way we have to deal with pressure, because at the end of the day, what matters is great work.
That's wonderful. Dealing with clients who also look at you as partners in their businesses and not necessarily somebody who is after their money. So before we get to the
Yeah.
next question, I'd like to encourage guys who are on board. Yeah, shoot your questions. We have a few minutes to go. So please join the conversation. And thank you, Johnny and Delphine, for being present, and everybody else who's following our conversation. Please send in your questions to Ask Rama, and let's continue the conversation. Jenny Dark asks, and also, what does Rama think about what Jesus, Bahatis, and this stands pulling content creation?
I'm always conflicted when it comes to questions
Yeah.
about people who are
Uh-huh.
doing the same thing I am, because it gets to a point where you might say something about someone and they take it personally. I think for me, what's more sustainable over a long period of time is if you are yourself and you keep your content very manageable. Like I said, manage your brand very well. If you're going to keep it 100 with people, just be as authentic as possible. You
Yeah.
are your longevity is boosted in that way. I think I've been in the scene for almost um 10 years or so. I think I started in 2020 2009 is when I started.
Yeah.
And for me, it's how you manage your content and how you manage your brand. If it gets to a point, because you always have to outdo yourself. So if today, maybe
Yeah.
for example, I jump out of a building, that will be normal for people. Next week or next month means I have to jump out of a mountain. So the more you like, sometimes we put this pressure on ourselves. So you just
Yeah.
have to manage what you show people and manage your brand, so that you don't get to a point where you're doing things just to entertain people and it's not being helpful. Yeah,
Eddie
that's what
asks,
I would
what's
say.
the
That's
meaning?
me personally with any. Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie asks, what's the meaning of your tattoo and what was your advertising addiction? Was it alcohol or alcoholism? Yeah,
My okay, so advertising is really interesting, because everyone has an X factor. I think for me, my advertising addiction became social media, because that's where I spent a lot of time monitoring my brands. So
uh-huh,
it went from just being on social media to monitor your brands and monitor your campaigns, to just being on social media because I'm
uh-huh.
working here. There's a video rendering and I have nothing to do. I'll find myself on social media, and I'm trying to kick that habit. But
Yeah,
yeah, I never got addicted to alcohol, never got addicted to weed like a lot of creatives do. I manage a lot of my my X factors, and I like to keep it that way, but I feel very strongly that I sort of got caught up in that social media thing without knowing. So I know I spend a lot of time on social media, and I'm cool with that because
Uh-huh.
it's nice when you know what that is. Yeah.
Great. So what does your tattoo mean? That's what Eddie is interested in finding out.
My tattoo is an elephant. It's a big
Uh-huh.
elephant with the trunk on my arm and one ear on my chest and another ear on my back. I love elephants very much because they are very smart. They have good memory.
Members of
They
wisdom.
mourn. They're basically just like humans. They remind me of humans, but
Yeah.
they're less problematic. I think humans are very problematic.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And Ovita Kenny asked, what does Rama listen to when he wakes up? I don't know whether he means music or podcast or human
I
voice.
listen
Uh,
I like listening to when I wake up every morning. I like listening to different things. So sometimes I listen to a lot of chill jazz music. I like my mornings like slowly building into my day. Sometimes when I'm feeling or I'm going to a meeting, I listen to some Nipsey Hussle or some Young Jeezy.
uh,
If it's a very important meeting, I need to be hype. Most times, though, I listen to podcasts. Um,
mhm.
I love listening to The Art of Manliness. Um, I love listening to just general, Audible. I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great. Now you're saying that you started off your advertising journey back in 2009, and looking at it over a decade now, or close to a decade, a lot of
yeah,
things have developed in the creative landscape. How have you been able
yeah.
to adapt to the differences or the different creations and developments that have arisen in the creative space and especially in the advertising niche over the years?
I think I think for me, I have evolved in terms of my skill set. I think as soon as I read that in a few years, 85% of the content online is going to be video, I picked up a camera and taught myself how to edit videos. So I'm a very good editor in that regard. Um, I think the same breath when we started doing Green Calabash together with Shiko, we started noticing that blogging is kind of dipping in terms of how much people read, and we got into video and content creation with that regard, and we started doing videos. So we try to as much as possible to stay ahead of the curve in terms of how we create our content. Um,
Mhm,
try as much as possible also to look at how we diversify how we share our ideas. For example, I've taught myself how to design, I've taught myself how to um, edit videos, I've taught myself how to do audio content. So like I try as much as possible to just get with what's happening. Of course, I don't need to be on all the platforms. All I need to do is know how to create whatever formats that go into those different platforms, because not all platforms are for me.
So technically speaking, how you've been able to manage is and stay ahead of the curve is learning to keep on upskilling and learning new things as they come.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why I also went into freelancing, because freelancing gives you the opportunity to um, upskill yourself and not task-based work.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So when I'm not doing
Having said that,
task-based work, yeah.
there are many things you've said you taught yourself. You taught yourself how to play football. You taught yourself how to paint. You taught yourself how to design. You taught yourself audio and video editing. I mean, you've learned a lot of things by yourself. Did you at one point require a mentor or somebody you look up to? Or it's just something intrinsic where you decide, no, I'm going for this. Doesn't matter from scratch, from now. I don't know anything, but I'm diving into it. How is that? Did you need somebody to hold your hand?
For football, I did. I used to have a 12 coach. It's called Enrico. Taught me a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. I think for strategy as well. One of my biggest mentors in terms of just understanding people was George Luther. I when I joined the advertising world, George Luther was one of my biggest mentors. So I owe a lot to him. He
Uh-huh.
taught me everything I need to know about advertising. So for me, all I'd say is as long as you understand people and what people's needs are, what their fears are,
Yeah.
everything just falls into place. We share the same fears, we share the same hopes and dreams. It's just
Uh-huh.
that if you change your focus and say this guy wants to play football, that guy wants to draw, you just have to
Mhm.
call out those fears and those dreams and then know like this is how you navigate them. So that's
Great.
how I've learned that's how I've taught myself a lot of the things I know right now.
Teaching yourself and going to the right people who know the event. So
Yeah.
Eddie is asking, do you have to pitch for clients or do clients have to come to come to you?
I'd say a bit of both. Sometimes we work on referrals. I'll do a good job for one client and they'll refer me to someone else. Sometimes you just have to shoot your shot.
Yeah.
And the thing with freelancing is every time you go into it, you have to reach out to your old networks and people you haven't talked to in like 10 years. But
Yeah.
we say it's all about what I bring to the table. If I feel like um, there's a way I can improve someone's
Uh-huh.
brand, then I'll
Yeah.
always approach them and reach out to them and tell them, hey, I want to help you achieve X and X goals and let me know how we can work together. And then
Yeah.
that's where you start discussing money. Yeah. Because I have all the ideas. My office is my head, so I go everywhere with it. As long as I have
That's one.
a good head on my shoulder, that's all the office I need.
That's great. Stanley Mwangi says, for my business to make it big time on social media, what
Mm.
are the key strategies to employ and how do I make sure I get most out of selling on my social media?
I think you have to understand, actually, not I think, I know you have to understand who your audience is, who your target market is, and find out where they are, how they spend their day, and how you show up to them. Because if you're not relevant, it doesn't matter who you're talking to. You're not going to be able to impact where um, content and media comes in. Because media guys will tell you where your people are, content people will tell you. So it's a good balance of both. And content has to be creative. So you have to talk to your people in a way they can relate to you.
Great. Stanley Mwangi also has a follow-up question. He asks, in terms of different platforms, I think he means to ask Twitter, FB, Instagram, which one should be the starting point for a business that deals with apparel in Kenya today?
For apparel,
Uh-huh.
I would say for apparel, Instagram is more fashion centric. There's a lot of fashion happening on
Uh-huh.
Instagram. People show a lot because fashion is very visual. Your apparel will be very relevant on a platform like Instagram. I'd say
Yeah.
that's where you should concentrate your efforts. Yeah.
That's great. So Stanley, I think you have Instagram to begin at for your apparel since that's where people it's more fashion centric. They say, do you have a mentee?
I do. I used to have a lot of guys I mentor like in Nairobi. A lot of guys don't know in my previous years before I got into advertising, I used to be a volunteer first aider.
Uh-huh.
People who went to St. John Ambulance, guys who are in high school. I had a lot of cadets, so guys between 14 and 18 that I used to mentor. I used to go to camps with. And that's why I learned that, if you don't have a mentor, sometimes it's good that you find a mentee so that you share the knowledge you have with someone. Once you share the knowledge and what you know with someone, you're challenged to find out new things and learn new stuff. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Given that you started teaching yourself and upskilling after reading an article that storytelling would be audiovisual. That is, would involve videos and audios in a few years to come, and that's how you started preparing yourself a decade in advance. Now we are in 2020 and we have Vision 2030. What do you feel that people or creatives rather should get ready for in the next one decade?
I think creators need to get ready for the Internet of Things, and the Internet of Things is everything from augmented reality to virtual reality, um, interactive mobile experiences. That's where everything is going. So it's
Yeah,
only a matter of time before 3D printing is available. It's only a matter of time before everything becomes automated. I mean, Canva is only going to get better. So if you're a designer, how do you outdo Canva? And that's where things are going.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people who do not adapt in that regard, in terms of tech wise, will have to
yeah.
adapt and become better at telling more emotive stories, because robots can't outdo us at telling human stories, and that's where everything is going. So by the time the tech has passed, obviously someone will need to tell human stories in a human way, and robots can't do that. So you'll either have to be more emotive in terms of how you bring out your ideas,
Uh-huh.
or you have to be in sync with the latest tech so that you make use of it and bring it to life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know some of the human skills which are highly valuable at the moment, the ones that cannot be shared by IoT and AR, VR, and all sorts of technology that's coming. I understand there is a language called Digital, if I'm
Mm,
if that's
yeah.
right. The one that can write a story, can write a court judgment in the court language and whatnot. Looking at that detective space, what are the skills that you hope or that you think will always be there, which contribute to the emotion, emotiveness, and which enable individuals to maintain the human aspect of storytelling and creativity? Which are those particular skills?
I think there's one thing AI doesn't have that only humans have, and that is um, real insights, real human insights. That's something that you only get when you talk to people, interact with people. And I'm sure Eddie can attest to it. When we used to work together, I used to walk from the office to the house. Doesn't matter how much I was earning. Um, I still used to take public transport when I could. It's because sometimes you need to hear how people talk to each other, understand what people's fears are, and just engage and interact with people in the office. And sometimes you have offices where there's a billionaire in the top office, and then there's like tea girls, there's drivers, there's guards at the gate. Like, make sure you talk to all those people, because that's where you gather your human insights from, and no computer can be able to talk to those guys the way a human can. So you just make yourself an asset, and then you just collect that data and collect those emotions. Yeah.
Eddie agrees that you used to walk. Yeah, and that's really great. Given that there are skills, you've challenged me actually to look to the importance of IoT. That is something that I've been trying to get into, by force and understand the IoT things is to get ahead and also balance. How do you balance between family and work? How do you juggle between that?
I'll be very honest. It's a struggle every day, and I keep telling people the same: between family, work, and just yourself. Sometimes when you're very good for yourself, you're not the best father. Sometimes when you're the best worker, you're not the best father, you're not the best partner at home. Or sometimes you're the best partner, but you're not the best father. Other times you're the best partner and father, you're not the best worker. It's like something always has to give. So you just have to find out, okay, so if today I am the best worker and I'm not the best dad, how do I make it up tomorrow? So you always have to work ahead in terms of and keep double effort. So you skip some days and then you put double effort on other days. Yeah.
What do you look back 5 years and say, yeah, I failed at this? You have succeeded at quite a lot, but then you look back and say, I made this mistake, and yeah, 5 years ago, and this was a major mistake I should have avoided. That I can talk about confidently and say, I did this, it went south, and I would like that people in the creative space still don't follow these choices.
I think people in the creative space need to create their own platforms and own their own platforms. And that means if you have a Facebook page, make people know you. You're a designer, make sure people know you as a designer on your own platform. If you're a copywriter, make sure people know you on your platform as a copywriter and try to grow it as much as possible. Um, what I regret
Yeah,
personally is I really didn't have that much self belief when I started out. The first time
yeah,
I think started, I went into business. I went into business with small chunks of self doubt. And you know, with self
yeah,
doubt, anytime you start anything with self doubt, any challenges just amplify the doubt. And,
uh-huh,
you know, it kind of snowballs and eventually it rolls over and just engulfs you. So I'd say
mhm,
create your platform, build your platform, grow your skill set,
uh-huh,
and try to collaborate with as many people as possible. You can't do everything by yourself. So those are the things that I would say a lot of creatives would start doing. Um,
yeah.
Collaborate a lot with people who are good at their job. Yeah,
That's great. Collaborating with others who are really good at what they are doing and what you are interested and invested in. Now,
yeah,
we have just spoken about IoT, Internet of Things. And in the finance industry, there is blockchain, yeah, which is a more
yeah,
decentralized platform. And now,
yeah.
coming to the social media end, I keep wondering, what if one day, this is a possibility? Yeah, it's possible. Instagram goes down and you have a million followers, and that's why you built your business. What's next? So, is there a viable alternative that people can hold on to now? Because anything is changing. There is a lot of censorship. You wake up one morning and find your account is has been reported by people and it has been suspended, and all of a sudden you do not have the huge following. Well, what is the alternative that people should really hold on to and can try to do that?
I think I would say place your bet on yourself. Like that's if I could use a tagline for that, I would say bet on yourself. Put effort, grow yourself, and grow your skill sets to a point where even if you didn't have your platform,
Uh-huh,
people would look for you offline. Yeah. If you're a good strategist and you didn't have
uh-huh,
your social media account, people will look for
uh-huh,
you offline. They'll still find you on LinkedIn. They still find you on Facebook. And if they couldn't find you on Facebook, someone's going to Google you now and they're going to call you. So you build
so
something that exists outside of the social media sphere,
uh-huh,
and you only use social media to amplify. You don't use it as you don't use it as sort of your foundation. You only use it as an antenna where you amplify your idea. You amplify what you're good at. Yeah.
So the king is yourself, working on yourself, upskilling, making yourself known so that people can look for you even though Facebook takes down their company all away from Africa or something happens to your account. Well,
Yeah.
guys, it's less than 3 minutes now, and this conversation just started. Yeah, I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, but it just started. I don't know. We want to continue, have another 1 hour. So Jeridak has another question and he asks, what's the future of creativity? I think that's a general question a bit, but Rama, you have an answer to that. What's the future of creativity? I know creative is fluid, but tell us.
I mean, creativity has been around since the dawn of man. I think creativity is like an instinct.
Uh-huh,
Like I would answer that question with another question. If someone asks you what's the future of instinct, creativity is not going anywhere. I mean, it's not going to be replaced by
uh-huh,
it's not going to be replaced by technology. I think if anything, um
uh-huh,
I'm forcing my children to be more creative, because if there's gonna be robots that do or replace human jobs, someone has to
Yeah.
be creative enough to build them. Someone has to be creative enough to code something that actually brings a solution. So creativity isn't going anywhere. If anything, right now
Uh-huh.
and in the future is where creativity is going to be a make or break for people. Yeah. Because logical
So
thinking,
creative is the
like
future.
you can't beat a computer at logic. You can only beat a computer at creativity. You can't beat a computer at logic. The power a computer possesses to process thoughts is too great. Like your brain cannot compete with anything right now in terms of technology to process information and make logical conclusions from information. All it can do is compete in terms of creative stuff.
Yeah. So creative is the future. That's what Rama says, and creativity is with us as long as human beings exist. Now that time has really gone, but then I have two questions. Talking throughout the time, Rama, I get it that your motivation is intrinsic, hugely depends or comes from within you. But what is that thing that you are
Yeah.
running after? What is that great goal that you are chasing? Then two, what would you have told a 25 creative you who had a plan of settling down and building a business and maybe starting a business and maybe having a family and maybe having
So I think your stream is frozen, but I would say in terms of um I'll answer the second question first, because that's what I got the first time. I think my stream lost you there. I would say for 25-year-old creative, I would say, learn your craft, build your skill set, speak with more confidence, um, maintain the energy, don't let people's doubts slow you or steer you away from what you believe in. Um, at on at all times, in any case, always make sure that you show up even when you don't feel like showing up. Um, Try to be as disciplined as possible. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Eventually someone will notice what you're doing. That's what I would say. I didn't get the first question because the stream was kind of slow. They only got the second question, so maybe you can repeat the question for me. Sorry.
Oh, Rama, just appeared. I think Steamer KPNC have done the thing. I'm sure you
We
understand.
understand.
It's me again.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you.
Well, I also didn't get his first question, but I have one more question before
Yeah.
we close the interview. How will you want to be remembered, and what will constitute success for you?
I think for me, how I remembered is entirely up to how I'm remembered is entirely up to what I do. I like I used to be that guy who would say, I want to have a legacy, I want to have this and that, I want to be remembered for this. But then I realized if I put my mind in that sort of situation, then I will never live in the moment. If you're always living for the future and what people will think about you in the future, then it kind of interferes a lot with what you're doing right now. So I just want to be that guy right now who lives out his creative dream, expresses himself fully. I don't choose how I express myself. If I want to paint today to express an idea, I'll paint. If I want to design to create to express an idea, I will design. If I want to sketch with a pencil to express an idea, I'll do that. So I'm not boxed in terms of how I express myself. I think creativity as a whole is a form of expression, and I don't think anyone should really limit themselves to how they express themselves. I mean, you could have one thing that you're really good at and say, I'm a good photographer, but then what's stopping you from painting if maybe you have an idea that requires you to paint? That's one of the big, big, big reasons why I taught myself a lot of the things that I know right now. Um, And for me, that's how I'd love to be remembered. Someone who expressed himself fully. When I need to use words, I have my Twitter platform to go and use words from. When I need to use visuals, I have my Wacom and I can go draw. I can go paint if I have to paint on my canvas, and that's how I express myself. So it's a form of expression, and I would love to be remembered as someone who expressed themselves fully by all means and all platforms necessary. Yeah.
Well, wow. In my stint, technology had almost failed when we were coming to a close, and that's
No
really
worries.
superb to know that you are versatile and you are fluid enough to go for what you want and be aggressive enough to chase your dreams and be remembered as somebody who loved to express himself whichever way came by him without limits. That's really wonderful. And I don't know, I'm just going to take one more minute and ask if there is somebody else with a final question to the session. It's been rad, it's been perfect, it's been cool speaking to you, Ramsey. And the only thing I have now, one last question that I'd like to ask. I got cut short when I was about to ask. Most of your motivation is intrinsic or intrinsically driven. It's from within you, your mind. Where the secret power is. Where is that your secret power that gives you the drive? Is it your family? But no, you had dreams before you had family. So where is that secret lies? Like the hair that was like Samson's hair. Please, you could tell us.
I
Is
think
the
for
final
me,
final secret? Uh-huh.
it's the need to be someone, make someone out of myself. Um, people say, as a creative, the best thing you can do is design your own life.
Yeah.
Because we're all born, we all have the same destiny. You have a certain window and a certain period of time where you can say, I lived for this long. And how you understand the world is very, very, very
Mm-hmm.
important. So for me, that motivation comes from inside me because there's something that I want for myself. The reason why I begged so much to
Mm-hmm.
get a job, I used to pray for a job. And then when I finally got a job, I worked for 7 years, then quit to try self
Yeah.
employment because I was driven by that need to build myself and do something with myself that I felt employment wasn't allowing me to do. I tried that. I saw how it was. I'm not afraid of failing. I went back. I've seen the best and worst of life. I went back into
Uh-huh.
employment. I worked for another 3, 4 years. Then I left again. Now I'm here again saying, hey, world, look, I'm here. Show me what you need to show me. I need to learn.
Yeah.
I need to be better than I was last year. So it's that sense of self-improvement, always being,
Uh-huh.
if I want to be a designer, I want to be a better designer than I was last year. If I want to be a painter, I want to be a
Uh-huh.
better painter than I was. Yeah, so it's that drive, to always make sure that if you have an idea in your head and the
Uh-huh.
idea comes in the image of a photograph, learn photography.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an idea in your head and it's presented to you as a painting, go learn painting. Paint until you get that idea out. So that's how I'm
Yeah.
learning now. I have the idea comes first, and then I think of how am I going to execute this thing? What's the
Uh-huh.
best medium for me to use? And then that's where I apply myself into and say, I'm going to learn how to do that so that this thing comes to life.
That's clearly perfect, excellent. To be driven by the power of wanting to be better every day, the urge to be better every day. Guys, it's been
Yeah.
wonderful session to have Rama on board. And thank you so much, Ramsey, for agreeing to speak to us and to the Zero Chills audience. We really appreciate the challenge to keep better upskilling, being better versions of ourselves by day, and also trying things out as it comes, without fear. We trust ourselves and see what the world has for us. Clearly, so many lessons for us, and I'm really grateful. So, Rama, you wanna give us a pun? Yeah, a
Ah.
pun before you say your final one.
You I want me to give a pun.
Yeah, you
Like,
can, you may.
I may.
or a
Okay,
dad joke.
so or a dad joke. Let's see. You know, I
Or a
like to
dad
pride
joke.
myself for thinking. I like to pride myself for thinking on the spot because that's how I stay sharp.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But today I'm caught unawares. But anyway, you know, I've eaten. I had a maembe for lunch because um I didn't want to leave, you know. I didn't want to leave. I had a mango for lunch because I didn't want to leave. But I left
Oh,
anyway because I had a mango.
wow, wow. I took a second to get that. Great. That's a fun. That's powerful. Thank you so much, Rama.
Ah,
Guys, we really appreciate
you
your
know
time. Thank you
the good
for
thing about
joining us for today's conversation. Uh-huh.
the good thing about dad jokes is, you know, it doesn't matter the more horrible they are, the better.
Yeah.
You know that I keep telling people the whole point of dad jokes is to tire the children so that you don't have to fight them. They just sleep.
Wow, that's really powerful. I think we should get you next time on board for us to go on, and we
Yeah,
might start that joke all apart next time. Everybody who
yeah.
joined us to watch, we really appreciate your time, and we hope that you'll be with us next time when we bring in our next guest, and also when Rama chooses to join us once again, we shall really appreciate. I love his fun. Wonderful. So until sometime, Rama, maybe you have something to tell our audience before we close the show. Some final
Um,
thing. Yes, sir.
I would like to tell the audience and whoever's
Uh-huh.
watching, because I know a lot of freelancers, a lot of very young creatives are watching this. I would
Yeah,
like to tell everyone to believe in themselves. You're going to have a lot of doubters. A lot of people are going to tell you can't do things you know you can do, but you have to
yeah.
believe in yourself. Like, if you don't believe in yourself and you let an ounce of doubt get into your head or your heart, just remember, if you have doubt in your head or heart, anytime you fail, it'll almost amplify, like it snowballs. You start believing that you can't do things. So you have to be fearless. Even when it makes no sense to anyone else, it has to make sense to you. You have to stick by what you believe in. That's all I'd like to tell the young creatives. Like, don't ever let anyone put doubt into your head that you can't do something.
Wow, wow, wow. You have to believe in yourself. Thank you so much. Rama, stay with us. Everybody, goodbye. Until sometime.
Kwaherini.
Yeah. Eddie.